Will Smith and Martin Lawrence return to their hit franchise for the fourth Bad Boys film, Bad Boys: Ride or Die. Is this the action extravaganza this summer needs? When their former captain is implicated in corruption, Miami police officers Mike Lowery and Marcus Burnett have to work to clear his name. So truth be told, I didn't totally remember all of the events from the third film. Luckily though, we're given brief flashbacks and enough content to catch anyone up so the current story makes sense. The premise is that Joe Pantoliano's police captain character is accused of massive corruption, sending the department and all those loyal to him into a spiral, with Mike and Marcus now working to exonerate him. Now, I gotta say that the first part of this film had me doubting if I was supposed to take it seriously or not. There are some visuals within a sequence that do work for the point that's trying to be made, but they felt so out of place within this grounded, albeit absurd, action comedy. Lawrence's Marcus has this experience that informs all of his behaviors and motivations for the rest of the movie, which really does add some hilarious scenes. But the initial portion that enabled the rest of that comedy, it felt like an abrupt jolt of weird. But after that strangeness, the film goes head-on into pure extreme action and laugh-out-loud comedy. We have foot chases through dangerous environments, gunfights that are more like warfare than police procedures, an unexpected aerial moment, and also some exciting drone work. Now, if you want a movie that's going to get your heart pumping, this certainly is going to achieve that. I was surprised to find myself leaning forward into my seat, just anxious at the outcomes, especially when the peril seemed to compound itself for the characters. Now, the situations for the action sequences, those are totally overblown and then blown up, but they work so well to infuse adrenaline. And it's needed because the story itself, it isn't terribly deep or complex. So while the action isn't non-stop all the time, they're spaced appropriately to just allow our hearts to calm down a tiny bit before ramping back up for some chaotic mayhem. And of course you need to suspend disbelief for a lot of what we watch go down. The nature of the stunts, they're completely unrealistic. I didn't care. I was fully invested in the hand-to-hand close-quarters battles and all the gunfights where, from some of this, people never seem to run out of ammunition. If you're bothered by plot and character protection in these types of over-the-top action movies, you're going to want to steer clear. A lot of the fun in this is seeing how deadly accurate the good guys are with their shots, while the bad guys are more like stormtroopers and can't hit the air in front of them. It's unrealistic. And that's exactly the draw for an escapist movie like this. Now, for as much fun as the action scenes are, there is one sequence that caught everybody by surprise, and then had the audience cheering and applauding. I mean, we get a frenetic and suspenseful moment that pretty much made my jaw hit the floor with how unexpectedly awesome the scene was. Yeah, I am being completely vague because you deserve to have the same surprise that we did. Now, I think this is the first major release Will Smith has been in since the Oscar debacle. I mean, I know he was in Apple's Emancipation, but that didn't get the full court press and just publicity with marketing like Bad Boys is and will get. Now for this, Smith is just as charismatic as ever, playing the somewhat pretentious but intelligent and highly skilled Mike. The no-nonsense mentality that he brings, it contrasts so well with Lawrence's less serious attitude, creating a very enjoyable dynamic between the duo. And Martin Lawrence as Marcus is riotous with his comedy. He still has his sharp timing and delivery, making so much of what he says and then does outright funny. He's the fool many of the times in this. I mean, the one that we're just supposed to laugh at. I mean, especially given his experience at the start of the movie and then what that entails. But I wasn't laughing at him. I was laughing because of him. He has a relatability that makes him endearing and way more approachable than Mike. And he becomes one of the characters I don't ever want anything terrible to happen to. I've said the storyline and plot are pretty simple. That also goes for any villains. I think the reveal is very obvious way before it's shown. Truthfully, that area is predictable just about from the very start, or at least once the case begins. I didn't mind that so much, even though I did hope I would be wrong. And most of the time, the cinematography for this and the camera work allow for beautiful and enveloping shots that just use movement to keep the pace progressing continuously. But in some of the action sequences, the edits become extremely fast, or the shaky cam becomes excessive. And it's one thing to augment the feeling so that it feels more immersive, but when we can't focus on anything, the shot loses its effectiveness. Now, luckily this wasn't the norm, but each action moment did have times within them that made it difficult to see all of the stunts and choreography. Now, I love how the story still centers around family, and we see it in many different facets. While Mike and Marcus's families aren't included in a ton of the footage, their presence is felt and they're integral to the overarching emotion. And they're also the huge motivation for the duo, which also then allows us to see the different sides of their personalities. And then these create meaningful complications within our characters. We get to see that despite their numerous heroic actions, they're not as stoic and invincible as they present. Where the movie suffers the most, outside of the strange and out-of-place visuals at the start of the film, it's within the villains. There's a lead and a group, then they're mostly all just generic. Not much time is spent establishing why we should care about them, other than their ruthlessness and the chaos that they create. And I didn't totally mind the lack of development thanks to the action, and truly, the story, it doesn't require a well-crafted and thoroughly frightening and unhinged baddie. They're bad, and they do bad things, and they're after Mike and Marcus. So that's all the motivation the narrative requires to create an escapist action summer popcorn movie. Oh yeah, be on the lookout for an excellent cameo. It's brief, but so on point. So overall, Bad Boys Ride or Die delivers exactly what is promised with chaotic wild action, hilarious comedy, and a surprising scene that blows the roof off the joint. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence continue to showcase their incredible charisma and timing, maintaining the camaraderie and friendship that's carried the franchise thus far. While one sequence feels visually out of place, the villains are generic and undefined, and the overall plot is simple and predictable, this is still the maximum bang for your buck when it comes to exciting and explosive action. While the film may not need to exist, I am thrilled that it does, and I will be there for more of Mike and Marcus if the duo returns. There's no sex, maybe some very brief nudity, a ton of profanity, and an immense amount of brutal violence. I give Bad Boys Ride or Die 4 out of 5 couches. So are you a fan of the franchise? Do you have a favorite one within the series? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.